Star Citizen's development is always looking ahead to the next feature, the next optimization, the next awesome content. But it can be just as important to continue making improvements to existing aspects of the persistent universe whenever possible. And members of our Environment Art team are doing just that. To get things started for us this week, let's find out what they're up to.
In the last couple of months, we had the opportunity to revisit the underground facilities from a lighting perspective. When we initially released the underground facilities, we had only 4 or 5 different variations of the layout. And at the time, we just lit each one individually, placing the lights in pretty much the exact same locations for each room because they're the same rooms. But we were noticing that as we were doing more playthroughs and we were placing more props based on mission spawning, that certain areas or NPCs or props were missing contact shadows. So we added more shadow casting on the existing light setups. And as we want to build our locations more modularly in the future, it makes sense to move the lighting away from the entire environment and into each kind of individual module and just make sure that it blends nicely between each room and each environment. This means that in the future, when we want to generate more layouts and more underground facilities, all of the lighting is already pre-baked in. So this speeds up our development time a lot. It minimizes bugs and just makes life a lot easier in general.
So I'm going to show some of the updates with ARCCORP that we've been doing, specifically on the cityscape, adding more variation to it. So here we've got a current tile as it looks at the moment. We did a lot more work on this, so we've got kind of a lot more realistic placements with adverts. It's kind of feeling a bit more like Times Square or like Piccadilly Circus, less flat on the walls and just more parallax and just much cooler look, and the trenches are way deeper now. The other things we've been doing are redistributing buildings. So we've got some buildings that kind of weren't seen that often, like the meta-classical style of buildings. So we're seeing more of these now, which kind of indicate kind of a past of ARCCORP where the fashion and the architectural style was a little different. We've also reduced the amount of red buildings in ARCCORP, so there's less of that sea of red, which I know everyone loved. We've got some new buildings like these ones, which are a little bit more beefy, and like one over here, which is kind of an interesting shape. So we're just adding, dotting around a few new building styles, a bit more unique shape to them. Then of course we've got something we've mentioned before, the donut building or donut tile is really nice, adding to the kind of shape language of ARCCORP. So we're not just seeing blocky buildings everywhere, we've got this nice circular megastructure going on. And then we've added a lot more types of adverts in, so we don't see like the same advert like 5 times in one view. So all this hopefully will add more variation and more breakup and more interest to ARCCORP Cityscape. We've liked doing this, so I hope you guys enjoy it when you get it.
So for the last couple episodes, this is the point where we'd include some of the outtakes that occurred during filming. We don't have that this week. It's because nobody's going to hand me a dog today. No writers are going to crash the hosting this time. Instead, we're going to move right on ahead into the next segment, like this one where we sat in on one of the many sync calls between team members from different studios. So here's Josh and Yogi with a review of ship audio improvements between Alpha 3.4 and 3.5.
Hello, Josh.
Hello.
Awesome. Let's talk about some ship audio difference between 3.4 and 3.5. Well, I think that sounds all very flat, don't you think? It's just following really what the ship is doing, but not much more beyond that.
It's just a transition between two very, very static sounds rather than, being like a dynamic, evolving thing. The drama we have now on the transition between like afterburner and normal flight and when you're pulling away from stationary and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So let's take a look at 3.5 instead. I think what I like most is that the noises from the thrusters, they're not just coming from the thrusters anymore, but the whole ship is now talking to you. We have these proxy points in the cockpit now that tell you what the sound of the ship is as opposed to what's the ship of like each individual thruster.
And I tried to place sounds like, you know, look at the ship, where would this sound actually be coming from? I thought about where the rotation sound would come from, where the surgy sounds would come from, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it feels so much better than 3.4. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that's for space combat. Let's take a look at atmospheric
You can
stuff.
see that in atmospheric entry as well, the camera shake. So we'll look at that.
Oh yeah, this sounds unhealthy.
Yeah, you can see the camera shake there with the combination of the kind of flame cone sounds and the vibration sounds happening there. That flame cone sounds way more detailed than it was in 3.4, because it's actually, it changes depending on the speed you're going on the temperature of the ship and stuff, rather than just being one loop, which is really cool.
Also, you can hear how the ship is moving against the wind.
Yeah, so when you turn off the engines, you're just getting the environment feedback and vibration sounds rather than the thrusters as well. And in 3.4, when you turned the engines off, you'd lose all of the sounds because of the way they were triggered. They were all tied to the thrusters, but here you can hear the just the vibration and the environment feedback sounds by themselves.
It just tells you how systemically everything works. As the ship slows down, all these sounds slowly die away, and you have this eerie silent atmosphere thing going on, and which is really creepy, and tells you really, oh, if that happens actually in the game, then I am in trouble, right? Because I'm going to crash to the planet. Well, not in this case, because the ship is turned on again.
Yeah.
But I really like that moment. Let's take a look at the last video. We had a couple of backers who did a lot of nice videos with the 3.5 and the 3.5 Evocati and PTU versions, and those videos also pretty much show off what the audio stuff is doing. I really like how the difference between internal and external sounds are realized now. It feels so real. I mean, being inspired by real things is also something that we went for. We have a lot of military and airline pilots, and we actually reached out to people to ask, hey man, how does it feel, and how do things sound like when you're actually flying a fighter or a glider or airline, right, or an airline jet, and all these discussions went into 3.5. So yeah, there's a lot of more stuff to come, and we're really looking forward to show that off.
Now, if you've spent any amount of time on Spectrum the last couple weeks, you've probably heard people speculating about the Persistent Universe's next vehicle edition from Tumbril. And this week, we're ready to pull back the curtain and let our developers introduce you to that wheeled warrior of wickedness. Thanks, Mike. The Tumbril Ranger.
When this gets into the game, I really want people to get on the bike and really just feel the road beneath their feet and between their thighs.
Let's say between.
What? I mean, okay, so Paul Jones was building this thing, right? And we have to put components in the bike, and he literally had to put the components in between your legs because there's no more room on this thing because it's so small. It's literally, there's a power plant in between your legs. So, I don't know which way to say. When we started actually making this, I wanted to make something that was small and compact and something that could fit on your ship no matter what it was. I think Paul went ahead and just did that, and it looks pretty cool to me.
Tumbril Ranger is Tumbril's new entry into the market with their motorcycle. It's sort of an off-road, do-it-everything kind of vehicle. 2 wheels, but quite flexible basically. So it's part adventure bike, part race bike, part combat bike, depending on which model you want to go for.
The 3 versions of the Tumbril Ranger are what we're calling the touring version, the combat version, and the tuner version. The touring version basically has a place for 3 mission boxes so that you can pick up a mission box, store it on there, and then take it to your destination. The combat version basically just has guns on it, and it's meant to give you some offensive power. The tuner version is the racing version. It's got that extra boost capability and an extra battery so you can go a little longer.
There was a lot of backwards and forwards about different styles, different configurations. Because we've had to deal with strict sizes for components, that dictates quite a lot and sort of puts a lot of constraint onto your design. People will see straight away that it's got the Tumbril DNA in the bike. I mean, you can't fail to notice it.
I'm really excited about this concept. I can't wait for it to get into the community's hands so they can feel the terrain beneath their feet and start their own biker gangs.
So, what did we learn this week? We learned that the sound of exploding spaceships is truly the international language. When having major battles in Korea or the underground facilities, it's important that you can actually see what's happening. Game of Thrones! And motorcycles are still super cool in the year 2949. To our subscribers, our thanks for making each episode possible. And to everyone, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of the other shows, and you can also head to our website at www.robertsspaceindustries.com. Thank you very much for watching.